There is a tiny creature waiting in the tall grass at the very edge of your yard right now. It is no larger than the head of a pin if it is a young one, and no bigger than a sesame seed if it has fully grown. It does not move much at all. It simply sits at the tip of a blade of grass with its small front legs extended, and it waits. It waits for a warm body to walk past so it can grab on. Once it is on you, it climbs up the sock, up the calf, up to the back of the knee, or the inside of the thigh, or the soft place behind the ear where the skin is thin. There it bites, and there it stays drinking for days at a time, and what it leaves behind in your blood can change your life forever. That is a tick, and the children we used to send running through the grass without a second thought, we cannot send them anymore the way we used to. Lyme disease is now present in every single state in this country. The cases reported to doctors have tripled in the last 15 years, and the real number is many times higher because most cases never get reported. There is a new one I want you to know about called alpha-gal syndrome that the Lone Star tick carries, and one single bite can leave a person allergic to all red meat and dairy for the rest of their life. 450,000 cases are suspected in this country already. That is not fear talking. That is the plain truth of what is hiding in the grass. I am Amish and I farm in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. My grandchildren run through this same farm and these same woods I ran through as a boy, and the ticks are worse now than they ever were in my lifetime. Today I'm going to walk you through 4 things you can do this week, none of them costly, all of them safe enough that I use them on my own ground, around my own family, that will drive the ticks out of your yard and keep them off your skin. I will be honest with you the way I always am, including telling you what the chemicals folks reach for first will do and which ones you must never use if you have a cat in your household. Stay with me. By the end, you will have a real plan and you will have it for less than you spend on lunch. Let me first tell you a thing that surprised even me when I learned it. Because once you know it, you understand the whole game. Ticks do not live in your lawn, not really. The neat trimmed grass of your yard is not where they wait. They live in leaf litter, the loose, damp, decomposing leaves under bushes and along fence lines. They live in shaded edges where the woods meet the yard, in tall, weedy patches behind the woodpile, in the unmown strip along the back fence. The boundary between your yard and the wild is where they sit and wait. Mowing your lawn does almost nothing for ticks. You can mow it to a green carpet and they are still sitting 12 feet away in the leaves under your forsythia bush, ready to ride a passing dog or a passing child right into the middle of your tidy lawn. The trick is to treat the edges, not the middle. Most folks have this backwards. So once you know where they live, you know where to fight them. And the weapon that works, honestly, the one I am about to walk you through, is one of the oldest tools the old farmers had: cedar. You know what cedar smells like. You have smelled an old cedar chest or a cedar closet or a cedar fence post that has been in the ground 20 years and still has not rotted. The reason cedar wood lasts where other wood does not is the same reason it kills ticks. The wood itself is full of natural compounds. They have names like thujon and plicatic acid that small creatures cannot tolerate. Insects and ticks crawl across cedar oil, and those compounds disrupt their breathing through the tiny holes in the sides of their bodies. They dry up. They die. This is why a cedar chest has kept moths out of wool blankets for hundreds of years. The moths cannot live in cedar's air, and the same is true for ticks. Now, I want to be honest about something before I sell this any harder, because I have read the scientific papers and I will tell you the plain truth. In a laboratory, cedar oil kills and repels ticks at rates of 80 to 90%. Those are real verified numbers. In a real backyard, the numbers are more modest. The field studies done by the disease researchers show cedar oil knocking down only 5 to 25% of ticks in tests and giving you maybe a couple of weeks of partial suppression. So I will not tell you cedar oil clears every tick out of your woods. It does not. What it does do is drive them away from the spots you treat, kill the ones that come into direct contact with it, and most importantly for a household with children or pets, it is far, far safer than the chemical sprays. That second part is where the real value lies, and I will say more on it. Cedar oil is one tool. The 4-method approach I'm about to show you is what makes it work in practice, because each method covers a weakness of the others. Together, they drive ticks out of the places you actually live, work, and walk. The first method is the cedar oil spray you can buy ready to use. There is a brand called Wondercide and another called Cedarside and a few others. All of them are cedar oil mixed with a carrier oil in a spray bottle. You take it out into the yard, you spray the perimeter, the fence line, the edge of the woods, the base of the deck, under the shrubs along the property edge, and you reapply every 2 to 4 weeks during tick season. A bottle runs about $25 to $30 at any hardware store or Tractor Supply or online. It covers a few thousand square feet. This is the convenience version. Pay the $30 point and spray. No mixing, no fuss. If you have the money and you would rather not bother mixing your own, this works honestly. Read the back of the bottle. The only ingredient that matters is cedarwood oil. Everything else is filler. But here is the thing. The cedar oil in that bottle is the active ingredient. And cedar oil itself, the pure essential oil, you can buy for a fraction of the price and mix the same spray yourself in 3 minutes. Which brings me to the second method. The second method is the $4 homemade spray, which uses the same active ingredient. You can buy a 4 O's bottle of pure cedarwood essential oil, the good kind, the Western red cedar kind, for about $10 or $12 online or at a health food store. That 4 O's bottle will make you 16 batches of tick spray. Each batch costs you about $3 or $4 when you count the witch hazel. The recipe is simple and I will tell it slow. 1 TSP of pure cedarwood essential oil, 1 cup of distilled water, not tap, distilled because the minerals in tap water keep the oil from mixing right. 1 TBSP of witch hazel, which you can buy at any drugstore for a few dollars, or you can use plain vodka if you have it. The witch hazel or the vodka is what they call an emulsifier. It is the trick that keeps the oil and water mixed together instead of separating in the bottle. Without it, the oil floats to the top and you spray nothing but water. You shake it well before each use. You pour it into any plain spray bottle. You spray the same places the store-bought version is for. The edge of the woods, the fence line, around the base of the deck, the shrubby corner where the kids play. You can spray it on your shoes and the cuffs of your pants before you walk into the high grass. You can mist it lightly around the dog's outdoor space, not directly on the dog, and I will say much more about that in a moment. A few honest words on storing it. Keep the bottle in a cool, dark cupboard. Sunlight breaks down the cedar oil and weakens it. Reapply every 2 weeks during the worst of tick season and after a heavy rain. Rain washes it off, same as the store-bought. That is your $3 batch, the same active ingredient as the $30 bottle, 10 times the value for the same chemistry. Now I need to stop and tell you the safety word, because this is where most folks make the mistake that hurts somebody they love, and I will not let you make it. If you have a cat in your household, you must be careful with cedar oil, and you must be even more careful with the chemical tick sprays. Cats are different from dogs. The cat's liver does not have the enzyme that breaks down essential oils the way our livers do, the way a dog's liver does. Cedar oil applied directly to a cat or in a space where a cat is heavily exposed can build up in the body and make them sick. Vomiting, weakness, in serious cases, worse. So never spray cedar oil directly on a cat. Never apply it to a cat's bedding or where the cat sleeps. And do not spray the inside of your house with it if you have a cat. For the yard, the outdoor perimeter use we are talking about is generally fine for cats who pass through occasionally because they are not heavily exposed and the oil dissipates out. But I would not soak the area where they nap. Now here's the part nobody tells you. The chemical tick sprays, the ones with a chemical called permethrin, are far more dangerous to cats than cedar oil is. This is not a small thing. Permethrin is what is in most of the popular yard sprays and many of the dog tick collars. Cats cannot break it down at all. If a cat walks across a lawn that has been freshly sprayed with permethrin and then licks its paws, which is the first thing a cat does, they can have seizures within hours. There are cats sent to the emergency animal hospital every spring from this. The dog owner does what the label says, brings the dog inside for the recommended time, and never thinks about the cat sharing the same grass. So the honest comparison is cedar oil used with sense is gentler on cats than the chemical sprays by a long way, far gentler. But essential oils are still a real chemical, and they deserve respect. Treat the spray bottle like you would treat any cleaning product, out of reach of children, never sprayed on the skin without dilution, never applied directly to a cat. Used with that ordinary sense, it is a far safer choice than what the lawn care companies will sell you. That is the safety word. Mind it. Now the third method, which is the one that does the most lasting good of all of them. The third method is the cedar chip barrier, and this is the one that pays off for years. Spray you have to reapply every 2 weeks. A cedar chip barrier you lay once and it works for 2 to 3 years. Here is the move. You buy real Western red cedar chips, not the cheap dyed mulch from the big box store, which is colored pine and does almost nothing, but actual cedar wood chips sold by weight at any landscape supply yard. They run $40 to $60 for a cubic yard. You lay them in a band 3 ft wide and about 3 in deep along every edge where your yard meets the woods, the fence line, or the unmowed area. Every tick crawling out of those leaves and that brush to reach your yard has to cross that band first, and the cedar in the chips is doing its quiet, slow work the whole time, every hour of every day, killing the ones that try and turning the rest back. The research on this is the most encouraging of all of it. Studies done at agricultural experiment stations have shown cedar mulch barriers reducing tick numbers in the protected zone by a great deal. Some studies show better than 80% inside the band. Others show more modest numbers, but every honest study shows real protection. And the great thing about it is that the chips do not need spraying, do not need mixing, do not need any attention. You lay them and the cedar does the work for 2 or 3 years, slowly weathering, slowly releasing its oils until you top them up with a fresh layer. And here's the cleverest move of all for the patient man. Call your local tree service. When the tree trimming crews work, they end up with truckloads of wood chips. Cedar tree chips, when they take down a cedar tree, are a problem for them to get rid of. They have to pay the landfill to take them. A great many of those crews will deliver a whole truckload to your driveway for free if you catch them on the right job day. Some folks have built their entire perimeter for the cost of a 6-pack of soda handed to the crew on a hot afternoon. Ask, be friendly. The worst they can say is they have nothing on hand today. For a quarter-acre property, you are looking at perhaps $150 in chips bought outright, or free if you ask around, for a barrier that costs nothing to maintain and works for years. That is the forever fix. That is the one I would do first if I had to choose only one. The fourth method is the cleverest of all, costs 3 cents and works every single time. I learned this one from a hunter in our community, and the foresters and the field researchers all do it. You will smile when I tell you. You take an ordinary roll of duct tape, the wide gray kind, the kind in every man's tool drawer in this country, and before you walk into tall grass or the woods, you wrap a band of it around the top of each sock with the sticky side out. That is it. That is the whole trick. Here is why it works. Ticks climb. They do not fall from the trees, despite what folks say. They climb up from the ground, up the shoe, up the sock, up the leg, looking for warm skin. Almost every tick bite in this country happens between the ankle and the waist, because that is the climbing zone. So when a tick grabs onto your boot and starts up your leg, the very first thing it crosses is that sticky band of duct tape at the top of your sock. It gets stuck. It does not climb further. It does not reach skin. There is no chemistry for it to work around. It is simply glued in place. When you come back to the house, you peel the tape off, fold its sticky side onto itself, and throw it away. Ticks and all. You do not even have to look. The tape has them. 3 cents an ankle. Works every time. No chemicals on your skin at all. This is the one I have my grandchildren do before they run into the back pasture. They think it is funny. It is also the cheapest, most reliable personal protection I know of. Now I want to take a moment because this is the part that matters. Look at what we have just walked through. 4 methods. Together, they cost you almost nothing. A few dollars for a homemade spray batch, $150 or free for a once every 3 years cedar barrier, 3 cents an ankle for the duct tape, and together they cover every part of the tick problem. The perimeter, the personal protection, the long-term landscaping, and the convenience when you need it. Now compare that to the alternative. The professional tick and mosquito treatment company that knocks on your door in April will charge you $400 to $700 for a season, sometimes more. Their main ingredient is permethrin, the chemical that puts cats in the emergency room. They will come every 3 weeks and spray your whole lawn. They will tell you to keep the dog inside for 24 hours, and they will never once mention the cat. There is a great deal of money in selling families a monthly tick treatment contract. There is no money in telling a man to buy a $10 bottle of cedar oil that will last him a season, lay down a band of free cedar chips, and wrap duct tape around his socks. So nobody runs a commercial for any of it, and a whole nation thinks the only answer to ticks is the white truck and the $700 contract. It is not. It never has been. The old folks dealt with ticks the same way they dealt with every other pest, by knowing where they lived, by using what worked, and by not paying for what they did not need. So here's what I want you to do. This week, do these 3 small things in order. First, buy a small bottle of cedarwood essential oil online. $12, mix 1 batch of the spray using the recipe I gave you, store it in a cool, dark cupboard, and walk the edges of your yard with it. Spray the fence line, spray the strip where your lawn meets the wild, spray the shaded corners where the leaves pile up. If you have a cat, mind the warnings I gave you. Second, look at your property and pick the spot where the woods or the brush comes closest to where your family walks. Order or ask a tree service for enough cedar chips to lay down a 3F band along that edge, 3 and deep once. That barrier will be working for you 2 and 3 years from now. Third, buy a roll of duct tape if you do not already have one. Keep it by the back door. Before anyone in your family walks into tall grass or the woods this season, wrap a band around the top of each sock, sticky side out. $4 in your hand for the spray batch, $150 or free for the long-term barrier, 0 to 0.3 an ankle for the personal protection. That is your full tick plan, and it is more than most homeowners with a $400 contract are getting. Tell me in the comments below, where do the ticks get bad on your property? The fence line, the woods edge, the dog yard, the kids' play area. And if you live in a part of the country where ticks are at their worst, the Northeast, the upper Midwest, parts of the South, tell us how bad it has gotten this year, because the folks just starting to deal with ticks should hear from the folks already in the worst of it. I read every single one. Next time, since we have been speaking of how to keep the small creatures out of where the family lives, I am going to show you the old way my people keep mice and rats out of the granary and the home. The simple traps, the doorway tricks, and the small habits that mean you never have a mouse problem in the first place. It is the natural next step after today. Until then, mind the edges, lay the chips, and remember that the cheapest line of defense against the smallest enemy is almost always the oldest one. If this guide has changed the way you look at the edges of your yard and the safety of your family, please subscribe and like the video. We are uncovering the practical wisdom and history that often gets overlooked in the modern world. Let's protect our homes together. The next chapter of our journey into self-reliance will open soon.